So I did not plan on doing a video, but then Kevin Porter Jr. dropped 50 points, and he's been doing this a bit for the Rockets lately, some 20-point games, and the assists have been there as well. And he is now inserting himself as someone that the Rockets definitely need to hold on to. Now, luckily, he's cheap. He's on a rookie contract, so this year it's only $2 million. Next year it'll be $2 million, then it'll be $3.8 million after that. So he's got a lot of room to improve, and based on what he has been showing for Houston as a shot creator, as a pick-and-roll ball handler, as a contested three-point shot maker, as a foul baiter, as, I guess, a point guard pretty much lately, he could be really damn good by the time it's the time to give him an extension, right? I mean, he's running screen plays with Christian Wood, and sometimes it's a basic pick and pop, sometimes it's a, roll to the rim, but that is proven to be really tough for teams to deal with. And the thing that I like, too, about Kevin Porter Jr.'s passing is that he clearly has an idea for, let me go give it to Wood because he's got a switch on him, or when Porter Jr. is bringing the ball up in the half court, sometimes he does a bit of the Rondo thing where he just throws it to the big guy before even bothering trying to get into the offense if he just thinks the big guy is in a good position. And sure, Houston's also running some basic sets where they'll just have somebody moving off the ball and then Porter gets it to them. But, it all sounds really basic, but these are the type of guys the teams go years without having, And it seems like Houston, they got one now. And I mean, we were all talking about, Kevin Porter Jr., and well, if his character is there, then we know he's good, but I don't know if anybody projected him to be having 50 points and a string of 20-point games. It's not every night, but it's happening often enough now that I just feel like, man, the Rockets, they probably got a hell of a steal here. What was it, a second-round pick? I mean, the Cavs basically just gave him away after that one incident, and you think a lot of teams would be kicking themselves after this one. I mean, I think what's interesting, too, is how comfortable he looks with the step-back threes right now. I mean, that was the main thing in this 50-point game, is he had a lot of contested threes. He had one step-back mid-range that was really good, and he had 11 free-throw attempts. I mean, Porter Jr.'s, 6'5"? He's listed at 6'4". I don't know. He's taller than your average point guard pretty much, and he has the ball as much as a point guard nowadays. And he's got the physicality to where he can mix it up when he's driving to the basket, and he doesn't seem to have a lot of fear when it comes to dudes around the rim either. So if this is real, if Kevin Porter Jr. really is this guy who can give them 20 points and 5 assists and more than that, over a whole season or whatever, then wow. I mean, that with Christian Wood and all the draft picks that the Rockets are going to have over the next few years, it's good. I mean, I know there was a bit of a conversation about, well, why didn't they just get Ben Simmons? And okay, yeah. I think one thing to think about there, though, is if they would have gotten Simmons, they would have been in an awkward spot because it's he would have made them too good, which means they probably couldn't go for the tank job and go for a high pick, even if this year they might not get their pick, even if they get the worst record. But they just wouldn't have a whole lot of assets to build around Ben Simmons. But even so, it's still it's Ben Simmons, so maybe that would have been the right option all along. I don't know. But having Kevin Porter Jr. with Christian Wood, Jayshawn Tate, and all of the picks that they've got over the next few years could be cool. I think it's an all right starting point. I mean, I still think the real difference between how the next whatever years are going to go for them is probably this draft. I mean, if they can get their pick, then that's massive. If they don't get it, it's not the end of the world, but of course, the benefits would be huge. And there are some other questions, too. I mean, will Christian Wood re-sign in 2024? Can they possibly get off of Eric Gordon or John Wall's contracts? Again, is Porter Jr. really this guy? I don't know. It's a lot of interesting things. What is Jayshawn Tate's ceiling? He's been one of the best rookies this year. And again, we're not going to know the answer to all these questions for a little bit, but in terms of Kevin Porter Jr. and having a shot creator and potentially a star, or even just a guy who can play really well next to whoever the next James Harden type of guy is for the Rockets, then that's really cool. And that's good for them. And again, for what they got for him, I mean, it kind of makes me think of when the Celtics traded for Isaiah Thomas. They traded Marcus Thornton and a first rounder that I don't think anybody really cared about that much, and the return they got on Isaiah was, of course, massive. And I mean, we'll see if Kevin Porter Jr. ends up being like 5th in MVP voting under the Rockets, but it's more so just like for what they gave up, for what he is and what he could be, assuming that he just stays straight in terms of character and all that, then yeah, there you go. And the 50 points against the Bucks.